here at Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions, and today we're going to talk GluBoost. So I see a lot of times online or out in public, people will come up and ask me, hey, I want to try this. GluBoost looks great. I want to try it. I hear everybody talking about it, but I'm not sure which bottle to buy. So what I'm going to share with you in this short video is the different products GluBoost has out there for us, the consistencies, the straight CAs, the fill and finishes, and I'm going to share with you why I use them and when I would use them. And then in the next video, I'm going to show you how I use them. So let's get started. So here's what we've got in our lineup. We've got blue, orange, and teal. These are the fill and finish. These are flexible. These are meant to be a finish. These are going to hold up. They're very durable. They're going to flex, so they're not going to get hard and crack and chip like some of our other brands do. The green and the red are an adhesive CA. So these are great as adhesives as well, but they're not flexible, so they're not meant to be a finish like this line is. And then our glue dry. Our glue dry is an aerosol can, and this is what you're going to mist over your layers as you build them up, and it's going to basically cure them and allow the next layer of glue to bond properly to the previous. So let's go in a little more depth and discuss these individually. So the first thing I do, anytime I use GluBoost, I'm going to use these Delrin bushings. The Delrin bushings will help your blank not stick to the bushing. If you're using metal bushings and you put a CA finish on it, eventually you're going to glue your pen blank to your bushings. So if you use the Delrins, you may get a bit of a glue buildup, but these will pop right off. Secondly, I always cover the bed of my lathe with a towel. That way glue doesn't drip down and build up on the lathe bed, and then when I slide my tailstock in and out, it doesn't move easily because I'm hitting build-up glue. So I want to protect my tools. Now where blue is nice, the medium fill and finish, where this works really well is if you're turning down a wood blank or a hybrid or somewhere that may have low spots. Like in this cherry pit blank, I've got some seeds that have popped out. The blue would work very well to be able to fill this stuff. And what I would do, you don't want to just put it all on at one time. You want to build it gradually. I would start by just applying a small amount and letting it roll in. And then as it self-levels, give it a mist. And what I'm misting is the glue dry. I don't want to put a huge amount on there. I don't need to cover it with a big glob. I don't need to empty half the can on the blank. I just want to put enough on there for it to set. And you can look at the light and you'll see as it cures, it starts to wrinkle a little bit, and that lets you know that your surface is cure. Other areas would be if there's any cracks or chips, right? Same thing. You're just going to come in here with a little bit and just drizzle it on there and let it fill itself in. And you can watch as it fills in, self-levels, and then you put a mist on it. Now, another thing that would come in handy is if I have to build all these up and I get them to where I want, I don't want to just jump into my finish. So then I'm going to sand this blank smooth and then start with my finish. And we'll cover that in the next video. But medium works very well if you have an uneven surface or a tear out or a chip or a crack and you just want to smooth all of it out. The fill and finish blue label is the medium, and it works just fantastic for that. All right, next let's talk about the teal. This is the ultra thin, and the reason I chose this next is because this is really always my base coat. This is something I put down first. Once I start my finish, once I've got any of the low spots filled with the medium or the cracks filled, any of the divots, anything that I need to self-level, I'm going to get that done. I'm going to sand it all smooth, and then I'm going to go to this ultra thin. This is always my foundation, and the reason that works is because it soaks in. So if it's a wood pen blank, it will soak in, it will stabilize the surface, it will give you something to build on. But I also use it on my acrylics. And in this case, I've sanded this blank down, but you can still see I left some sanding marks on here from the sandpaper. And this works not only as a scratch filler, but it will also start to build up a nice sheen and give us something to build on with the rest of our finish. So let me apply a couple coats of this, and then I'll show you the advantages of using it over acrylic. All right, so I have the lathe now set between, I think it's about 400, and I've got a paper towel that I've rolled up, and then I've flattened it out. You can use the blue. I use the white because it's what I have. This is, I think, Bounty. And yeah, it might smoke a little bit, but I don't leave it on the blank long enough to stick it there. If you hold this on the blank that long, you're going to have problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the ultra thin, and I'm going to use a whip tip to help me control it, and I'm just going to go across the blank. And you can instantly see how it shines it up. Give it a little spurts of the glue dry. You don't need to empty the can on it. I've seen guys on YouTube videos spray way too much, and you can keep it less. It'll last a lot longer, and it does just great. And so you build this up. I usually start my foundation work 2 or 3 coats. Now that's 3 coats. We'll stop the lathe, get a closer look at it. Now because this is acrylic, we can just build up 5 or 6 coats of the ultra thin and be just fine as a finish. We don't need to then go to the orange or the blue and build up all the stuff that we have to later sand off. All we want to do is apply enough that we can, if we need to micro mesh it or knock down any high points, and then buff it, right? So you can see already it's filled in the sanding scratches, it's self-leveling, and it's going to give us a great shine. The nice thing about GluBoost is the finish is harder than the urethane resin. All right, so now let's talk about the orange label, right? So the orange label is basically the thin fill and finish. It's flexible, but it's consistency of what we're used to for a thin CA. It's going to go on very easily. Now, I have the option. If I only wanted to build fill-in scratches with the ultra thin, I can do that. And then I could switch to maybe two layers of the fill and finish thin. It really comes down to what you want to do, how well you can sand or apply this finish. If you find yourself sanding through this or cutting through this in your finishing process, then maybe you want to add a couple thicker layers of the thin instead of the ultra thin. Now if this were a wood blank, I would definitely use fill and finish thin over the top. And it applies the same way. Put a couple drops on a paper towel and work across it. Light glue dry. And before you do any sanding or polishing on this, you want to make sure that you give it ample time to dry. And usually a minute is more than enough. As long as you are applying one layer of the glue dry in between each coat, what happens is the glue dries where it touches the blank, and then as you mist it on top, it dries. So they kind of meet in the middle, right? They're curing at both ends, and it's already dry. So that's how simple GluBoost is to use. It really makes our job easy. It makes us look great. But to sum it up, here's what we have. The blue is the medium. It's great for filling in cracks, crevices, and dings, or any low spots, or if you just need something to level out. The orange is the thin consistency, and that allows us to put a nice shine over wood and acrylic to build a hard, durable surface. The teal is great for sealing pores, for wicking in, for a standalone finish on acrylics, and for stabilizing as we're turning. And then the CA side of that is the red, which is the ultra thin, and the green, which is the thin. And those again are just adhesives. They're not meant to be a finish, but the fill-in finishes can be used as adhesives as well. One last tip I want to give you, something that I do, and I spoke to Rick at GluBoost about this. He suggested this. When you receive your GluBoost, if you order 2 of them and you're say you want one as a backup and you're not going to use it right away, you can put that in the refrigerator as long as it's unopened. It will help preserve the quality of that product until you're ready to use it. And what I like to do is I write the date that I receive it or ordered it on the side of the bottle. So if I've got more than one in there, I know that I'm picking out the one I should be using. But just make sure that once that bottle's open, you don't put it back in the refrigerator, because then you'll damage the product because of the moisture and the cold air. I hope this makes a lot of sense for you. I hope it answers some of your questions and gives you a little more understanding on GluBoost. Again, you're really not going to know it until you use it and you play around with it. But the nice thing about this product is you can turn a blank, apply a finish, and if you're not happy with it, sand it off and apply another one, right? The thin, the ultra thin, and the medium, they cover every aspect that we need in a finish based on whatever materials or problems we're going to run into in a blank. So give it a shot. I know you're going to love it. I hope you liked the video. Please reach out with any questions or comments. Subscribe for more to come, and thanks for joining me. I'm John. Have a great day.